The Republic has fallen, and in its place, an empire that quickly sets in motion a new rule, one that suppresses any hint of free will, squashes any reference to the Jedi Order, and removes any idea of rebellion against the Emperor himself. Amidst the quickly changing landscape was the tragic fate of one Anakin Skywalker, whose fall to the dark side and transformation into Darth Vader is only saddened more by the fact that his wife, Padme Amidala, gave birth to their 2 children just moments before passing on. Now, 3 individuals all decide the fate of the children as they prepare to live under the galaxy gripped by the Sith. Senator Bail Organa, on board the Tantive 3, meets with Jedi Masters Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda, who know just how crucial it is to set the foundation for the future in this very moment. One issue, though, that was more glaring than any other: the children. Luke and Leia were no more than a few hours old, but were already left without a father and a mother. They only briefly knew their mother's love, and would more than likely never experience that feeling from their father. The idea of separating the children did arise, but something about that choice just didn't sit well within Obi-Wan Kenobi. There is another option on what to do with the children. Separating them may very well be against the interests of the galaxy's future. Kenobi's remarks against the plan have created a shock in both Organa and Master Yoda, especially as Organa was set to take the girl back with him to Alderaan. What do you mean, Master Kenobi? If these are the children of Vader, there's no way they'd be safe together. He'd surely find them, would he not? Though Organa wasn't too knowledgeable about the ways of the Jedi, the gravity of the situation shattered any prerequisites of experience right now.
Master Kenobi, safe. The children must be kept.
Master Yoda even shared in the troubling prospect of Kenobi's idea. We must remember they aren't the children of Vader. They're the children of Anakin and Padme. What difference does that make? We saw what Anakin became. Every Jedi in the temple saw what Anakin became, or at least felt his wrath in some shape or form. Organa briefly experienced a flash of the young Jedi Padawan he saw die at the hands of Vader's troops on the landing platform at the Jedi Temple. He felt his muscles tense for a moment as Kenobi explained his reasoning further. I know Anakin was lost, but it's my fault. I wasn't the best master I could have been, but these children will not suffer the same fate. I'll be sure of it.
Suggesting training the children, you are.
Master Yoda couldn't help but wonder if Obi-Wan was in the right state of mind for his reasoning, but Kenobi was slowly seeing the importance of this new plan taking place. I know we can't train them traditionally. We are without a temple. No way for them to construct a lightsaber, among many other resources that would be absent. The galaxy will train them. What exactly do you mean? Senator Organa couldn't quite grasp at what Kenobi was trying to say, so the Jedi Master decided to be clear in his plan. They need to experience the galaxy as anyone else would. See the suffering the Empire will bring. If they are strong in the Force, they'll feel it and want to do something about it. When they truly are ready, I'll begin their training however I can. Kenobi and Bail traded glances, both analyzing his plan, but Bail couldn't help but seek another mind for the idea. And what about you, Master Yoda? Could you see this working?
A great risk it will be, but faith in Master Kenobi I have greatly. To where the children should go.
That's the greatest risk. Senator Organa, I believe you should take them both. Kenobi knew there would be resentment from Bail, and on cue, the Senator threw his rebuttal at the suggestion. The entire galaxy will see them. There'll be questions, and you'll only need one answer. They're adopted. Bail sat back and thought before further questioning. When will you train them? How will you train them? Let's give them time to learn. Time to see who they are. In 19 years, I'll travel to Alderaan and begin their training. Kenobi knew very well that his plan was a long shot, but needed for both the Skywalker children to be heartened by the dark future of the galaxy if they were to bring about a new hope. Bail tried to find that same spark that Kenobi did, and though he wasn't entirely sure, he agreed to the idea, as did Master Yoda. I'll send word to Brehal that I'll be coming home with twins. I best get everything ready. Stay safe to the both of you, and Master Kenobi. I'll see you again in due time, my friend. With his last words, Senator Organa exited the meeting hall and went to see his newly adopted twins, leaving Obi-Wan and Yoda to have one final thought.
To where will you go, Master Kenobi?
That's one thing I haven't figured out entirely, but I'll figure that out eventually. There's much time to prepare. Master Kenobi had never said anything that stood to be as true as his previous statement. The galaxy is just about to feel the tightening grip of the Sith, and he was preparing everything he could to sever the hand of the darkness. Master Yoda himself was headed to Dagobah. He had that in mind from the very start of the fall. But Kenobi couldn't quite gather where he would go, though Master Yoda did give him important information and something to study during his exile that had to do with his old friend, Qui-Gon Jinn. With that, the pair of Jedi set out on their own paths. Paths that would be lonely, but filled with some sort of purpose. Though Bail Organa's new path of fatherhood was one he didn't expect to be so hectic. Over the course of the 19 years, he's seen both Luke and Leia grow and become almost polar opposites of one another. Leia found a calling in the Senate and shared a spark for it just like her birth mother. But Luke found more passion in the stars. He wanted to be a pilot. He took lessons from Captain Antilles and strived to see the entire galaxy. The most important thing for Bail, though, was to keep one thing secret from them: the rebellion. The father within him wanted to keep them away from the brewing conflict with the Empire, even if their destinies would eventually lead them both down that path. However, the day of importance had arrived, though Luke and Leia had no idea how their lives were about to change. Hey Leia, have you seen Father? I asked him about possibly letting me get an X-Wing to try flying soon. I haven't heard from him since his last message a few days ago. Luke Organa was almost a splitting image of his birth father, but such knowledge wasn't even a concern to Luke, as he never knew him. I don't understand why you just don't fly one of the TIEs that Father decommissioned a few years back. Anyway, you can ask Tuvi. Perhaps she has when he'll be back in her logs. Tuvi was a protocol droid given to Leia by her mother, Brehal. After she showed signs of political aspirations, she thought it might be necessary to have an assistant of the sort. Not to be rude, but you should know I wouldn't be caught dead in a tie. Besides, I doubt Tuvi knows. Father has been really distant over the past few years, and I don't know why. Well, you know how busy the Senate has been as of late. There's a rebellion coming together apparently, and Father is one of the suspected leaders. Do you think it's true that Father's a rebel? Luke truly wondered if Bail would join a cause like the rebellion, and Leia's response was something that echoed his hopes. "Don't tell anyone, but I really hope it is. We've both seen how cruel the Empire is, and it's time that changes. If it can't be done in the Senate, perhaps the battlefield will be better." Luke and Leia were surprised at the appearance of Captain Antilles, who is supposed to be on call with their father, so if he's there, Senator Organa must be back as well. "Captain Antilles, where's father? Did he get me that ship we were talking about?" Luke sprang in excitement, but he quickly realized that the captain had a far more serious mood than usual. "There'll be time to talk later, but your father needs you both in his office, now." Captain Antilles soon left. Once they arrived, Bill had a tired expression on his face as he spoke to his children. "Luke, Leia, I've had the privilege of watching you both grow, and it has been an honor to be able to say that I am your father. Your mother shares in my love for you both, but there's something you must know. Your destinies have always been greater than mine, and it's today that you set out for those destinies." Bail Organa gestured to another individual to enter the room, and the Organa children were confused. They had never seen the man standing before them. He lowered the hood that covered his face and introduced himself. "I am Obi-Wan Kenobi. Is it a pleasure to see you both again?" It has been 19 years since the birth of the Skywalker children and their adoption by the Organa family. Now, Luke and Leia both bear the name of their new family and were raised in Alderaanian tradition, all the while not knowing what their future held for them. They had no idea that the great Jedi Master was waiting for the day he would train them to become Jedi. Moreover, they had no idea that their birth father was a Jedi in his own right, that turned to the dark side to become Darth Vader. It was now time to reveal some of that news to them now. Luke and Leia Organa had shortly turned 19 some short time ago, and just as he promised Bail Organa, Obi-Wan Kenobi had arrived to teach the children. Kenobi, who had only aged a small amount, revealed to Bail earlier they had spent some time in seclusion on not just one planet. He traveled the entire galaxy, gathering knowledge not only for himself, but for the training of the Skywalker children. It was Leia Organa who spoke first at the arrival of Obi-Wan, as she couldn't help but sense something about the man standing before her. "I knew you felt familiar. You were there, weren't you, when we were born? I can't explain it, but your presence feels..." "You need not try to search for the words. I understand. I also understand that this comes as a jolt, but you two share an importance that you not yet grasp. In due time, you both will realize your destiny." Luke jumped up, showing a slight hint of aggravation in his words. Now wait 1 minute. What's all this talk about destiny all of a sudden? Father, we hadn't seen you in months, and now it seems like you're giving us away. Luke was born to two parents that both boasted a fiery personality in their own right, and it's clear that that trait was passed down to him. Obi-Wan smirked as he gestured towards Bail, that he would answer Luke's concern. I expected this from one of you at least, given who your parents were. Leia now jumped up with intrigue that was shared by her brother Luke. You knew who our parents were. Our birth parents. Kenobi looked down as the last moments he saw Padme and Anakin replayed in his mind. He felt for a moment grief before looking back up the two children that he had held the first day they were born. He was amazed to see how much they had grown to look like their parents, and continued to speak in lieu of Leia's question. Yes, I did. Your mother was... Wait, Bail, you don't mind if I explain, do you? Bail gave a nod of approval as Kenobi continued on. Right. Your mother was Padme Amidala. She was as fierce as anyone could be, as trustworthy as anyone can be, and just... Kenobi paused again without realizing. In his mind, Padme's last words repeated in his mind, and it was Luke's interruption that snapped him back. Mr. Kenobi, sir! What about our father? What was he like? Ah yes, Anakin. He was like a brother to me. I would have trusted him with my life. He was, like myself, a Jedi during the Clone Wars. Our father fought in the Clone War? Luke turned to Leia, and the siblings seemed shocked to learn this information. But Luke couldn't help but wonder one thing in particular. Our father and mother. How did they die? Kenobi knew his first day with the children would be one filled with questions. And though they had a right to know the fate of their parents, Kenobi knew it wasn't the time to tell them. I'm afraid you have to wait, but we have more important matters on our hand. And it involves the two of you, directly. Leia eyed Kenobi, and once again could feel like something important was about to happen. And without hesitation, she spoke. You mean to train us like Jedi, don't you, Master Kenobi? You're very perceptive, young one. That's the goal, but there's much more to it than that. The Empire, as you know, have turned our galaxy into a dominion of darkness. You two are born of Skywalker blood, the children of the Chosen One. Kenobi once again thought back to Anakin and found himself off track from his words again, something everyone couldn't help but notice at this point. Master Kenobi. Bail Organa chimed in to bring Obi-Wan back to the moment. I do believe it's time for you to prepare them for their journey. Luke Organa was taken back by his adoptive father's words as he countered the suggestion. Wait, don't we get a say in this? We've been raised one way our whole lives, and you can't expect us to drop everything to be Jedi. It just doesn't work like that. Luke, you can't say you haven't felt something different about us. Leia, who seemed to be far more receptive of the idea, talked to her brother in hopes of persuading him to change his stance. All the while, Bail took the opportunity to converse with Kenobi one more time. They're so much like their parents. Luke is stubborn as Anakin was. Bail chuckled a bit as he reminisced to himself raising the young boy, but Kenobi showed a more stoic face in his response. If I'm being honest, that concerns me a bit, old friend. Leia seems far more reserved than her brother. I can tell you so much is true. Leia, though she can share in her family's charm, is far more mannered than Luke. Why is that troubling to you, Master Kenobi? Let's just say what happened to their father is still somewhat fresh in my mind, despite the years that have passed. As Kenobi and Bail finished their discussion, Leia walked over to the pair on her own, something that concerned Obi-Wan. Leia revealed to the Jedi that Luke wasn't coming, that he didn't see a future pretending to be a Jedi. She told Kenobi that she tried her hardest, but Luke always had a skull as thick as Beskar. Obi-Wan then took it upon herself to go speak to Luke on his own. The young boy hadn't gone far, and Kenobi didn't have to spend much time looking for him. He sat the son of Skywalker down, hoping to get through how important what was about to happen was. I need you to realize, what you and your sister have lived through, it was all part of a plan. Luke, you are the son of a powerful Jedi, one that failed in his mission to destroy the dark side. Now that mission falls upon the two of you. I firmly believe that one of you can't do it without the other. Leia is willing, and if need be, will leave without you. At some point, however, she'll need her brother. Luke's mind wandered as he searched for the answer to the current situation. He knew there was truth to what Leia said earlier. He felt the two of them were different as well, and couldn't bear to think about being away from his sister for too long. Will I still be able to fly? A smirk followed his response as Kenobi couldn't help but smile back. He recognized that wit as being Anakin's as he nodded approval. This was set to be the beginning of another crucial moment in the Skywalker lineage. Over the next few months, Kenobi did all he could to train his new Padawans. He took them across the galaxy to learn and study to hone their connection with the Force. He made use of training orders he was able to find, and the Skywalker lightsaber was once again wielded by the bloodline of its creator. However, just when it seemed like Kenobi had everything in place for his plan to work, everything changed in an instant. Obi-Wan Kenobi has long commenced the training of the Skywalker children, who were raised under the Organa name. Luke and Leia have both taken the training as serious as any other endeavor that they have encountered in their life. But the training was far different than that of the Jedi Order of old. Kenobi had to teach through journeying, taking the son and daughter of his old friend across the galaxy, studying and learning in the old ways of the Force. All the while, the two children came to realize that the Empire had ruined the ways of life for so many across the galaxy. Nevertheless, their training had to continue, and Obi-Wan knew where their journey would take them next. In the studies that you two have undertaken, have you come across the planet of Jedha? Obi-Wan rummaged around the corner of a ship that he had used to take the Padawans across the galaxy. He awaited an answer, mostly hoping that neither of the two had slackened off in recent days. It was the location of the first Jedi Temple, built not shortly after the one on Typhon. Leia answered with great confidence, shining a smirk to her brother, who responded with a more loving eye roll at his sister's intelligence. It's also where we're headed. This'll be a learning experience for all three of us, for I haven't been there myself either. We're in search of an old holocron that will certainly help in your teachings. Obi-Wan watched, surprisingly, as Luke took the Skywalker saber in hand, placing it at his side. I didn't realize you had already claimed ownership, Luke. It fits him far more than me, Master Kenobi. As you said, I'll have my own in due time. But what else can you tell us about Jedha? Leia took no problem with Luke wielding the lightsaber that Kenobi told them belonged to their father. She could sense that her brother had a far greater calling to the weapon, as could Luke himself. She was more interested in what was leading them to Jedha. In recent years, it's fallen under strict gaze of the Empire, as did any planet of importance to the Jedi Order. It'll be tough getting in, but I do have an idea. We'll all, however, must be prepared for whatever happens. Luke and Leia almost had a jolt of excitement at the prospect of finally encountering Imperials during their training, for they all knew something was drastically wrong once the ship that carried them to the planet arrived with no interference. Master Kenobi. Luke peered out the viewing scape of the shuttle. I thought you said the Empire was here. It looks like no one is here. Because there isn't. Obi-Wan could sense that the planet was void of human life, that not a single soul occupied the ground surface of the planet, something that went against the prior knowledge of what he knew. I had heard the planet was populated. Now it just seems dead and abandoned. We're going down there. The shuttle headed down towards the surface, and what they saw brought an emptiness that could be shared across all three individuals. The planet's surface had come undone. Rubble and debris where Jedha City once stood was reverted to ash. Dust storms could be seen in the distance, with bolts of lightning jolting from cloud to cloud. What in the blazes happened here? This isn't natural. You don't think the Empire did this, do you? They don't have this much power. It couldn't be possible. Leia watched over the planet as the ship glided slowly over what remained. Kenobi had planned to step from his ship, but readings showed that the air was still tingling with toxic levels of radiation, something Kenobi couldn't help but think was the Empire's doing. It was then that a transmission from Bail Organa reached the shuttle, and Kenobi was shocked to hear from the Viceroy of Alderaan.
Master Kenobi, I feared this day would come, but everyone knew it would eventually. War with the Empire has become a reality. As I speak, the rebellion is scattering after invasion on an Imperial planet. They had learned the Empire developed a planet killer, and we're doing our best to stop it. I know it's been some time and you are tasked with training Luke and Leia, but I need you. The rebellion needs you. I'm headed back to Alderaan to prepare my people for possible retaliation from the Empire. I hope this reaches you.
Kenobi's face held pure fear as he realized what he saw at Jedha was the Empire's doing. Luke and Leia, however, shared a sense of bewilderment. Father is with the rebellion. Luke found himself having to take a seat as Leia was simply speechless to everything that had just transpired. We must hurry to Alderaan. Obi-Wan was stern in his words as he prepped the ship for launch, back into the orbit around Jedha. The grim reality of the state of the galaxy truly began to sit in for Luke and Leia. For years, they had no idea that their father had been orchestrating the rebellion, for they only had been suspicious. They had no idea if their father intended them to see that message either, and further wondered what war would be like and if they were meant to fight in it. Master Kenobi, what are we going to do? Luke was the only one able to find the wherewithal to ask questions, as Leia still sat speechless in the cockpit of the shuttle. I'm going to help however I can, though you two will still need to focus on your training. Do you understand? You won't be ready to fight in this conflict, at least not yet. It was one of the last words in Kenobi's sentence that echoed in Leia's mind. Conflict. She never expected to be fighting in a war against the Empire, but she suddenly realized something, an important step she had to take in her training. A lightsaber. I need to construct a lightsaber. Do you really feel you're ready for that? It's important, yes, but you've only done so much thus far. Leia snapped back with a yes, something Kenobi knew he wasn't going to be able to counter. Very well, but it must wait until after we have arrived at Alderaan. It was then that Obi-Wan seemed to have stood completely still, his only movement a grasp at his heart. Luke and Leia now grew concerned for their shared teacher as he sat down for a moment. I sensed a great deal of suffering. I felt a wave of fear reach over me that sounded like a symphony of screams, then silence, as if they were wiped out in an instant. We must leave for Alderaan. Now. The greatest weapon to smash the rebellion. That's how Grand Moff Tarkin described the Death Star, and so far, his description has been more than accurate. It laid waste to the people of Jedha, wiped clean a mistake made on the planet of Scarif, and now its ultimate show of might has been completed. The planet of Alderaan, long believed as being a planet that birthed the distasteful rebellion, has been wiped from existence, only continuing in memory for those who cared enough to. Darth Vader was present to witness 2 of the 3 uses of the weapon, and though he had his own doubts, he has come to respect the awesome power of the terror-inducing weapon. He stood within the viewport, watching the space that used to be known as the world of Alderaan, as an Imperial officer gave way to news the Dark Lord wasn't expecting. Lord Vader, our technicians have intercepted a message from the world of Alderaan shortly before the destruction. After reviewing, we figured it's best you see its contents.
Send it to my chambers. I shall view it there.
Vader marched to his personal quarters. His steps echoed the halls of the Death Star. He stood over a holotable as the image of Bail Organa illuminated the area around him. It was only after the message finished that Vader felt a swell of emotions burst within him. His fists gripped tightly as he uttered one name.
Kenobi.
Alderaan was gone. After Obi-Wan received what seemed to be a dire warning from Bail Organa that the Empire had developed a weapon capable of destroying entire worlds, he set off to return to Alderaan in hopes that he could assist in any way that he could. This, of course, would mean that the training of Luke and Leia would slow down, but he had to make exceptions given the current tide of the galaxy. However, a new cog in his plan has been made as the trio arrived to the space where Alderaan once stood. It can't be. Obi-Wan's deepest worries became realized when he analyzed the star chart and saw that where a planet once stood was only a field of asteroids. His attention turned to Luke and Leia, who both comforted each other in the loss of their father, their mother, and their entire race of people. Kenobi then thought back to the first day that he took the children away for their training, and the many questions they had. One of those questions was how their parents died. He contemplated telling them that at this very moment, as if it would bring a level of affirmation in the destiny that they had to fulfill. But he knew that this wasn't the time, and certainly not the place. The rebellion. We need to find them. They surely already know of the horror, but I must meet with them. Don't you mean we? Luke looked up confused to the beginnings of Kenobi's choice of steps following the current matter. I don't want to separate, especially at a time like this, but your training must continue, even if it is without me. Well, what do you expect us to do? Luke stood facing Kenobi, arms open wide as he clearly didn't like his teacher's idea. Leia's lightsaber. That's your next step. When we find the rebellion, you two will travel to a world very important to the Jedi. Hopefully the Empire hasn't found it. It is called Ilum. I'll give you the coordinates soon enough, but I first need to know how to find our rebel friends. Yavin. Leia's voice, though she was distraught at the loss of her home, was still as strong through the pain. I'd seen Yavin appear in Father's logs numerous times over the years. He frequented a lot for it to be so far away from the core systems. Kenobi respected the strength in Leia's words and didn't idly wait to make way to Yavin. He knew there was something special in both the children of Anakin Skywalker, and he had faith that the path he was about to set them on was going to be completed. Across the galaxy, Darth Vader oversaw the construction of another step in further strengthening the grip of the Empire, the Super Star Destroyer. He was set to command one of the first to be deployed. Most of the innards were completed as Vader marched the halls of the vessel that would be known as the Executor. He made way to the bridge of the ship and told all individuals inside to clear out. He keyed in the command table and kneeled before it. In seconds, the image of the Emperor towered over him as he spoke to his apprentice.
What has brought forth this emergency from you, Lord Vader?
Kenobi lives.
There was a pause from Emperor Palpatine, as he hadn't heard that name in years, and didn't expect to ever since Order 66.
Are you certain?
We had contact with Bail Organa. He's assisting the rebellion, and he's taken on Padawan learners.
You know your mission. Find him and kill him.
What of the Padawans, my master?
If Kenobi's taken interest in them, make it official. I have as well. They are to be taken alive.
It will be done, my master.
The image of Palpatine disappeared as Vader rose from his kneeling position and marched towards the exit of the bridge, where an officer awaited with more news. Lord Vader, Moff Tarkin has called a meeting with Imperial governors aboard the Death Star. He's asked that you be in presence for the meeting as well. Vader headed towards his shuttle, but the politics of the upcoming meeting were the last thing on his mind. A hunt for Obi-Wan Kenobi was soon to begin, and he was going to do everything in his power to make sure he was the one to land a killing blow against his former master. It was during this moment that the ship carrying Obi-Wan, Luke, and Leia found its way to the Yavin system. Kenobi was about to ask where exactly they were headed, but a comm signal came in from the rebellion.
You've entered restricted space, monitored by the Galactic Rebellion. Please give your access code. Immediately.
Obi-Wan turned to Luke and Leia in hopes that they possibly knew any sort of code that would grant them entry, but the pair shrugged their shoulders in unison. Very well, I'll have to improvise. This is Obi-Wan Kenobi. I had received the transmission from Bail Organa to meet him at Alderaan, but I regret to report I was too late. There was an uneasy pause from the rebellion side of the conversation. When a voice did come through, it was luckily one that granted some good news.
You've been granted entry. Head to Yavin 4 at these coordinates. Mon Mothma would like to speak with you.
As communications clicked out, Leia was shocked to hear the name of Mon Mothma announced. Senator Mon Mothma is with the rebellion as well. I almost can't say I'm surprised. Neither can I. She was a loud voice against the Clone Wars as well. She's always had a strong voice. This suits her greatly. Obi-Wan decided to let the autocruise take them down to the planet as he prepared for his meeting with the senator from Chandrila. Once the ship landed, the trio was disembarked from their ship, and Luke and Leia were astonished at the size of the rebellion's numbers. Ships were scattered about the landing area, and it seemed as though there was a rush among everyone that occupied it. Obi-Wan, though, had seen many places like this, and continued on towards where he was to meet Mon Mothma. It was the main temple, where Kenobi approached, and there stood, in all of her confidence, Mon Mothma. She was one of the organizers of this entire movement, and with the loss of Bail Organa, she stood as the prominent leader. Master Kenobi, it is a pleasure to see you again. And who are these two with you? She turned her attention to the Organa children, and quickly remembered their faces. Luke and Leia Organa. My goodness, have the two of you grown. She had seen the pair plenty of times when they were younger, as she would visit Alderaan often, though now they knew why her visits were so plenty. However, the senator had more pressing matters to deal with. We do desperately need your help, Master Kenobi. The Empire has long had things we feared we wouldn't be able to deal with. As you heard, they have developed a new weapon they call the Death Star. However, thanks to the sacrifices of Admiral Raddus, we have the plans. We need your help with an individual. Obi-Wan was beginning to have fears to who exactly the senator was referring to. He had a pit inside him that was pleading that she would not say a name familiar to him, but his hopes were in vain. He's a frightening individual by the name of Darth Vader. He was at Scarif and slaughtered an entire ship of our friends and allies. And we need a Jedi. A powerful one at that. Kenobi's mind flashed back to the day he last fought Vader, on the world of Mustafar. He had hoped that was the last day he would ever have to face him, but it seemed that hope had dwindled. He then turned to see Luke and Leia watching him, and remembered they still didn't know the truth of what happened to their parents. He bounced the idea of telling them around and around in his mind, but he knew this wasn't the moment. Not yet. But he did have something important to tell them, in private. I understand, Senator. I will do what I can, but I need a moment with Luke and Leia, if you don't mind. Senator Mon Mothma bowed her head in acknowledgement of Kenobi's request as he walked over with the Organas to a more closed-off area of the base of Yavin 4. I'm afraid this is where our paths diverge. I have crossed blades with Darth Vader before, and I fear only I can do it again. Ilum is your next destination. There, Leia will be able to start constructing her lightsaber. Where do we go after Ilum? Luke showed great concern over the future, something Kenobi knew he got from his father. He assured the young Jedi hopefuls that they'll know every next step of their journey following Ilum. Before you go on your way, there are great people here, people that you will be fighting alongside at some point. Greet them, get to know them. With that, Kenobi went back to Mon Mothma to discuss Vader, while the Organas wandered about the entire base. This was almost a calm before the storm, despite the lively atmosphere. The storm would offer different outcomes for everyone, though. What those would be, only time would tell. Though his focus should be on the hunt for Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader has had his attention diverted for the moment, as he must return to the Death Star per request of Grand Moff Tarkin. Lord Vader had no intention on focusing solely on the technological terror that Tarkin found himself commanding. Once his shuttle arrived at the station, he made it clear that he had to meet with Tarkin immediately. Tarkin was found in the one area of the station he found peace. The viewport. It was from here where he saw entire populations of people wiped from existence, and the vile nature within him relished in that every time he stood here. It would be Vader who interrupted that peace. The Dark Lord and the Grand Moff never quite saw eye to eye, and there was an unspoken tension, and the fact that Vader was being yanked away from an important mission tugged at his twisted innards.
Moff Tarkin, I hope you understand this meeting doesn't stand high on my list of priorities.
Be that as it may, this matter is still important. So I'd very much like to know what you find more important.
I take it you remember your time serving the Old Republic.
It's a begrudging remembrance, but I do.
There was a Jedi that you served alongside, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He lives, and it is my task to find and kill him. Though impressive, this station is of no importance to me, nor is the meeting at hand.
Tarkin stood to remember the time he had seen Kenobi, even though his relationship with the Jedi and many others in the Republic were rocky. He saw himself as far more straightforward than anyone in the Jedi Order, but he knew that Kenobi was a high-level target of Order 66. Very well. We'll inform the governors of your search and get their troops on it immediately.
They'll never succeed in capturing Kenobi. I know exactly who I'll call upon. Your meeting will be your own. I think you understand the importance of my task.
This could be of interest to you regardless, Lord Vader. We're in search of the hidden rebel base, and it could lead to Kenobi.
You have no leads, and your search would take far too long. I require swiftness in my search.
Vader exited the room before Tarkin could chime in again. There was nothing more the Grand Moff could say that would sway Vader to see any interest in the meeting. Politics had nothing to do with this. As he marched towards his shuttle, he called over Admiral Piet, who had arrived with him, and gave an important order.
Send out a message over the encrypted frequency I had established. There is to be a bounty placed on the head of a Jedi.
Yes, my lord. It only took a short matter of time before some of the most elite bounty hunters in the galaxy had answered the encrypted message. Vader had them all brought to the Executor, his personal superstar destroyer that was still under construction. The lineup consisted of Bossk, Dengar, IG-88, Forlom, and the deadly Boba Fett. Before the Dark Lord entered the room to brief his newly hired hunters, the five present took the time to size up their competition. Dengar! The Trandoshan Bossk locked eyes with his oldest rival of the trade. Didn't know the Empire still had a use for you. Oh, shut it, you worthless reptile. I'm still worth more than a couple of droids. Dengar was quite obviously referring to Forlom and IG-88. Both stood in silence as they awaited their contractor.
You're all not worth it in the end.
And then there was Boba Fett, the second-generation hunter and probably the most hated individual in the room. We'll see about that, Fett. I have no problem showing you up. It was then that the doors adjacent to the collective of bounty hunters opened, and in walked Darth Vader. A silence gripped everyone as he activated a holotable on which the image of Kenobi appeared.
This is your target. He is a Jedi Master by the name of Obi-Wan Kenobi. You are not to kill, and if possible, you aren't to engage as well. If you discover his location, contact me immediately.
He's a Jedi. He's only worth something dead.
Boba was the only one who had the gall to question Vader's request, and the Dark Lord only tolerated it because he knew of Fett's skill level.
No killing. That's final. He'll also have 2 Padawans with him. They are to be captured as well. There will be a bonus for anyone able to complete that deed. You have your target. Do not fail me.
Forlom and IG-88 both powered up and exited the room, while Dengar shot dirty looks to all of his associates. Boba locked his view with the holographic image of Kenobi one final time as he took his exit, and Bossk snarled at all as he set off to begin his search. Vader could only sit and wait while they began to scour the galaxy in hunt of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Across the galaxy on Yavin 4, Luke and Leia were preparing for what was to be the most important step of their Jedi journey so far. Obi-Wan was set to begin work with the Rebellion, and this meant separation from his 2 Padawan learners. But he gave them a clear path to begin their journey. They were given a ship courtesy of the Rebellion to start their travels, but there was a weariness that existed within the both of them, one that Luke couldn't help but ignore. I know you feel it too, Leia. Feel what? Like there's an uncertainty. We don't have any guidance. Luke continued prepping gear as Leia spoke to her brother confidently. Master Kenobi said our path will be revealed to us as we continue. Have faith in that, Luke. Our minds need to be focused on getting to Ilum right now. Luke nodded his head in agreement with Leia's sentiments, but he still had concerns about Ilum. But what happens if we get there and the Empire doesn't let us in? You saw what they did to Jedha, and what they did to... Luke paused with a moment of grief as memories of Alderaan flashed in his mind. His home was nothing more than floating rocks, and Leia could feel Luke's sorrow growing within him. I already know. And we'll find a way to deal with whatever comes our way. We always have. Now let's get ready to go. We don't have any time to waste. With that, Luke and Leia began preparations for takeoff, and Luke took the opportunity to look over the base. He saw that everyone was occupied in their fights against the Empire. Every person that fought for the rebellion had found their purpose, and he was beginning to realize that he had found his. This is what Kenobi needed the training for, to help all those he saw live in a galaxy that's free. He walked up the ramp and the ship began to take off, headed for the world of Ilum. As it flew overhead, Kenobi caught a glimpse of the vessel as he walked over to a meeting with Mon Mothma about his mission, confronting Darth Vader. She had sent word that news had been discovered that she felt Obi-Wan needed to know. As he stepped inside the old temple, Mothma stood at a hollow table. The stillness of her face spoke volumes as she welcomed Kenobi. Greetings, Master Kenobi. I bring tidings that I fear might complicate things in your mission. Mothma signaled to a rebel officer as the trooper activated an image that caught everyone's attention. Our technicians discovered an encrypted frequency used by the Empire some time ago to post bounties that only the elite answer to. We paid most of them no mind as they're bounties on our leaders. But it seems we've already caught their attention. Kenobi was shocked to hear this, as he hadn't openly joined the rebellion yet. Well, this must be an older posting from just before the fall of the Republic. There's no way they could have known. Mothma informed Kenobi that the posting was as recent as a few days. We must move even quicker now. Bounty hunters will be on your trail. I agree. The one question is, how exactly do we draw Darth Vader out? What can we do to get his attention? Obi-Wan knew that they couldn't fool Vader. He knew too much of his former Padawan to know that a simple bait and catch wasn't going to be an option. If a bounty has been posted, he must be looking for you. So we do away with trapping him. Forget trying to bring him to us. We're gonna bring you to him. Our spies have discovered that he has a ship under construction somewhere in the Outer Rim. Disrupting it could be assistance for us all. Kenobi thought greatly on this idea, and though it was a long shot finding Vader, it was the only plan they had at the moment. He agreed, but work had to be done to find the site of construction. A rebel intel officer stepped forward with news that they had gathered. There's an Imperial intel center on the world of Navarro. If you're willing to join them, Master Kenobi, the mission is to infiltrate the facility and discover whatever information we can gather. We believe it will point us to the construction site. Who exactly do you have leading this mission? Kenobi was certainly planning to accompany the rebel team undertaking what could be a dangerous mission. It's being led by one of our commandos, an Alderaanian by the name of Cara Dune. Kenobi agreed to join the mission, and now the serious business was set to begin. Luke and Leia were on their way to Ilum. Obi-Wan was set to undertake his first mission with the rebellion, and Darth Vader's bounty hunters were out looking for anything that would lead them to their target. While the galactic conflict between the Rebellion and the Empire was set to begin another stage, the training of Luke and Leia officially began its next phase. the duo had been set off to find the world of Ilum, a location that Obi-Wan had said would be the place where Leia would be able to construct her first lightsaber. Luke had already found his saber, in the blade that once belonged to his father, as Obi-Wan had given it to them to train with. While en route, Luke's optimism towards a safe journey came into question. What do we do if the Empire is here? We have some combat training, but not enough to take down an entire base. Luke wandered over the controls of the ship as Leia prepared her snow gear. She had a lot more hope over the current step of their training than Luke. We won't be here long enough for it to ever come to that, I'm sure of it. I've done my research, and a lightsaber is made of kyber. This planet is filled with it. Luke walked by his sister, headed towards the back of the ship. So I'll only be down there for a couple minutes then. Master Kenobi talked as though it would be more than that. Well, maybe he didn't account for our ingenuity. Leia felt a gleaming confidence as the indicator for the ship coming out of hyperspace activated, as she called for her brother Luke to take his seat. As the pair watched the blue lights fade, they shared an expression of disbelief. The world looked as though it had been carved by a giant vibro knife. An entire section was missing around the planet's equator, and the extent of the Empire's evil only grew. They've been here. Leia's stunned look was only a peek into a mind that was running through so many negative outcomes of what they would see on the surface. How do you carve out an entire planet like that? It just doesn't make any sense. Luke stood up as he prepared for landing, reaching to his side to make sure his lightsaber was still there. As the ship broke the atmosphere, frost picked at the viewport. A light snow brought some life to a barren and forgotten landscape. It appeared to Luke and Leia that the Empire had done its damage and left. Let's not waste any time here. Leia was the first to step from the ship, and the stillness was as bone-chilling as the temperature. The brother and sister pair walked for what seemed like miles until they arrived at a large structure of ice. Luke pointed to something that confirmed to them that this is where they needed to be. Look at that structure. I doubt the Empire put that there. Luke then took lead, having his hand at the ready with his lightsaber, while the snow appeared to grow heavier with each step towards the structure. They spotted an entrance at the base of what seemed to be a door at some point. This was carved through. Someone wanted inside here, desperately. Leia kept an eye on all of her surroundings. The last thing she wanted was for a weary stormtrooper to appear out of nowhere. Leia, I can hear your heart beating. Calm down. There's no one here. The sound of a blaster discharging sent a jolt through Luke as he dropped to the ground, covering his sister. Faint voices could be heard echoing throughout the halls of this old Jedi temple.
Carabas, my weapon discharged. You gotta be careful with that thing. You'll cause this whole place to cave in. It's solid ice in here. We'll be fine.
Stormtroopers, meaning the Empire wasn't fully complete here, and that Luke and Leia weren't going to find ease here anymore. What do we do? We can't wait here forever. Leia did her best to keep her voice down, and Luke's quick thinking was about to come into play. Leia, did you bring a blaster? Luke's sister brandished a blaster pistol, a much better answer than saying yes at the moment. Luke whispered to his sister that he had an idea, but before he could spring into action, luck played to their advantage.
This is TK-421. Patrol complete. Yeah, we're headed back to base.
The stormtroopers headed off, but Luke got another idea that was wild, and Leia was certainly not a fan of it. They probably have shiploads full of kyber back wherever they're headed. We should follow them. Leia immediately protested, stating that whatever they were looking for was going to be found here, not at an Imperial base. It's time we start making our own decisions. This is our path, after all. Luke then ran off, as sneaky as he could, knowing that Leia couldn't shout to make him come back. Though surprising, she didn't follow her brother. Instead, a faint ringing caught her ear. She turned to see a shimmering light peering through the temple as she went off to investigate. Across the galaxy, Obi-Wan Kenobi landed on the lava-flats world of Navarro. It was here that he was to meet with a rebel strike team that was tasked with raiding an Imperial base in hopes of discovering the location of where Darth Vader's Super Star Destroyer was under construction. Leading the team was a commando by the name of Cara Dune, who was considered a survivor of Alderin's destruction. It was a title she wasn't exactly agreeing with, as anyone who was on Alderaan didn't survive. She was among the ones that were just lucky to be off-world when the Empire wiped her home from existence. Kenobi could sense the commando's emotions reaching a boiling point as he approached to introduce himself. "Greetings. I am Obi-Wan Kenobi. It seems I'm going to be joining you for your mission." "Welcome to the strike team, Master Jedi. I'm Cara Dune. You're just in time for the briefing." He gestured to a fellow soldier as he went over the plan. "Right. So we know the Imperial installation here is nothing to be scoffed at. It's fully stocked and fully armed. A stealth approach would have been recommended, but they have scouts watching every possible entrance and exit. We're going in with the big guns. Once we push through the outer defenses, the logistics division of the base is our target. There we'll find the data towers, and hopefully our way to Vader and his Star Destroyer." Kenobi found the plan to be sturdy given the situation. I had one question. What is our exit strategy? Surely it won't be an easy one. "In the hangar is an Imperial troop transport. If we're lucky, we can snag one of those, and we'll be able to get out of there with as many people as we went in with." There was a lot of hope involved in the plans with the rebels, and Kenobi could understand that quite easily. It was all they had to look for during the reign of the Empire. He readied himself for combat as the troopers set off for the base. It almost felt strange for Obi-Wan to find himself in a combat situation again, especially one that involved the siege of an enemy base. He had a slight concern for battle rust, but that all went away quickly once the first shots were fired. Kenobi activated his saber as blast of fire was traded back and forth between the Rebel strike team and Imperial forces. Things seemed to be going well, but there was something that was cause for concern.
"It's a Jedi! Inform command!"
One of the troopers for the Empire shouted out, and Kenobi immediately turned to Cara Dune with an expression that clearly read that they had to get moving. Out of willpower alone, the rebels advanced on their Imperial adversaries and secured the outer perimeter. I'm afraid the element of surprise is gone from me. They'll be far more prepared. Just give us more to wipe out. Let's get moving. Cara Dune charged into the base, and our team quickly followed, with Kenobi catching up to co-lead the charge. The combined might of a Jedi Master and a Rebel strike team proved to be more than enough to make it to the data towers, where they combed through everything until they could find the slightest hint to Vader's whereabouts. "Here, a file called Executor ISD. This has to be it. Let's extract it and get moving." It was unbeknownst to them that the task of escaping the base was about to become far more complicated. Word that a Jedi was a part of this assault had got out and reached the ears of bounty hunters, who all were extremely curious to investigate if this was Obi-Wan Kenobi. Obi-Wan Kenobi's assault on the world of Navarro has just taken an unexpected turn. Along with a strike team led by Cara Dune, the rebels have found themselves facing the uphill climb of escaping an Imperial base with classified and sensitive information, that being the location of Darth Vader and his Executor Star Destroyer. It is there that the rebellion hopes that they can get the Jedi Master to confront the dangerous Sith Lord. However, bounty hunters have been alerted to the presence of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and it's not the average meal. The most elite and dangerous individuals in the galaxy are on the tail of Kenobi, and one of those hunters have already landed. It is the Trandoshan Bosk that has found his way to Navarro first, and he has joined forces with the Imperials already stationed on the world. The Jedi! Leave him to me. Bosk, though usually he doesn't hold a position of power over the soldiers of the Empire, there is a special case when a bounty of this level is issued. Though he knows he must act quickly, he isn't the only hunter with the knowledge of Kenobi's presence. Inside the base, a much different tone is shared amongst Obi-Wan and his fellow combatants. It seems we're in a much bigger fight than expected. A soldier watching the security cams made note of the large Imperial presence gathering throughout the base. I saw a Trandoshan too. No doubt that's a bounty hunter. Then they're here for me. I'll be able to handle it. You all focus on getting to that troop transport. Obi-Wan turned his attention to Cara Dune, who nodded her head to show that she was prepared for a fight. With that, Kenobi activated his saber, and they all charged throughout the base. Blaster fire erupted, and this time, the battle didn't prove to be as successful for the rebels. Some soldiers were taken out by blaster fire, and there was no time to tend to any that could have survived. The rebels continued forward, and the Empire did all they could to hold the line. While Kenobi and company fought against the Empire, it was on the ice world of Ilum that the children of Anakin Skywalker saw their destinies take completely different paths. In a spur of what could be reckless thinking, Luke Organa opted to follow a pair of stormtroopers to their base, with the assumption he could gather kyber crystals for his sister Leia, much quicker than originally thought. He walked as quietly as he could as he trailed the troopers to their base. Blasted, guess I'm going for a ride. Luke moved quickly in order to jump atop the elevator that took the troopers down into the base the Empire had established. He was shocked to see the operation that the Empire had set up, though his eye was immediately captured by the sheer amount of cargo that was stored. He knew that there had to be enough kyber to power a dozen lightsabers twice over. Get in, get out. Luke thought to himself as he jumped from the top of the lift and found immediate cover. He surveyed the base around him and devised what he believed would be the best way forward, though Leia didn't have the need for such a rushed pace like her brother. Before her, within what was a grand Jedi temple in years past, was the key to her first saber. She reached forward, towards a solid wall of ice that shimmered, though only to her. Once her hand met with the ice, she felt a chill move through her body that was more supernatural. Voices whispered in a symphony as she pulled her hand back, and within it was what she had came looking for. A kyber crystal rested in the palm of her hand as she now turned her attention to the whereabouts of her brother. The worry only grew when she heard the echoing sounds of blaster fire and stormtroopers yelling out Jedi. Luke, what did you get yourself into? Leia ran off, concealing her newly discovered kyber crystal within her jacket. She followed a hollowed-out exit of the cave that led to a familiar design of an Imperial base. She was frozen for a moment at the sight before her, a world dying of an Imperial infection. She continued on, looking to see what predicament Luke had gotten himself into. She entered the base to see that Luke was doing his best to hold off an Imperial advance, yet it simply wasn't enough. Stormtroopers surrounded her brother as she remained hidden.
Surround him! Alright, Jedi. Put your hands up, and don't try anything stupid.
A trooper ran up and placed the young Jedi, hopeful, in shackles, a sight Leia felt sick at, but she wasn't in any position to save her brother. She ran back the way she had entered, the tears that poured down her cheek almost freezing as she returned to the ship. For a moment, she just sat there, alone for the first time in her life. Luke had been by her side for so much, but now he was in the clutches of the Empire. She didn't want to begin to think what they would do to him. Yet, she didn't have time to do so if she wanted to. She began to hear the faint roar of TIE fighters approaching, and she knew she needed to get out of there immediately. She ran through the launch process and she was off, yet TIE fighters were already on her tail. She took the ship into space, and the chase went on for what seemed like ages, but she was practically defenseless manning the ship on her own. Every so often, the TIEs got a good enough shot at the ship, only adding to the weight of pressure on her chest. It was then that Leia noticed another blip on her scanner, a ship coming in fast towards her encounter. She couldn't see the vessel, but heard blasts of fire resulting in the destruction of the bottoms from TIE fighters. The communication indicator flashed, and she reluctantly answered. "Who is this? And why did you help me?" Leia wasn't looking to chat. She needed to move quickly as she was going to save her brother.
Take it easy. We did just save you after all.
The mystery pilot immediately ticked a nerve in Leia. "Excuse me, we? I only have one ship on my indicator."
I'm not flying alone. This is Captain Solo, the Millennium Falcon. We noticed your ship is pretty banged up there, enough to where hyperspace is out of the question. With the right credits, we can get you out of here.
Leia somehow knew this conversation was going to lead to credits, and she personally didn't have the funds. But she figured if Solo could get her to Yavin, the rebellion would foot the bill. "I need passes to Yavin 4. Can you handle that?" There was a long pause on the part of Captain Solo, but he soon came back in.
After a short conversation with my co-pilot, we can get you there. Let's get you on board.
Back on the world of Navarro, Obi-Wan was in the midst of battle and finally crossed paths with Bosk, one of the bounty hunters on his trail. "You're mine, Jedi!" the Trandoshan shouted as he marched towards Kenobi, blaster in tow. Obi-Wan, however, was not to be overlooked. Once the hunter was close enough, Kenobi used his saber to slice the blaster rifle in two, and levitated him in the air before smashing him into a wall. With the bounty hunter incapacitated, Kenobi and the other rebels pressed forward, headed towards the Imperial troop transport that would lead them to freedom. Cara Dune already had the vehicle up and running as the remnants of the strike team, along with Kenobi, filed in, and the escape was underway. While the vehicle pressed on, Kenobi found at least one moment to rest, but he could sense something was wrong. It would only be upon his return to Yavin that a horrible truth would be revealed, and more than that, all the paths in this journey would be crossed once more. His future was one of great unknowns as he sat alone in the back of an Imperial transport. The only sound filling his ears was the occasional beeping of the systems in the cockpit. Luke Organa was captured on an Imperial base, separated from his sister. The unknowns in this situation absolutely ate away at him. Was Leia able to get away safely? Did she get the Kyber crystal for her saber? Yet more pressingly, where were they taking him? He was held in isolation on Ilum for a short period of time before guards escorted him to a shuttle in shackles. He wasn't told anything other than the orders of sit and stand, yet as his shuttle traveled further, there grew a chill that combed over him more and more. He began to become fearful of their destination. He then heard TIE fighters swing in on all sides of the ship, and the inaudible chatter of the pilots in the cockpit. He knew at this moment that wherever he was being taken, they were mere moments from arrival. an Imperial officer approached Luke, and the young Organa noticed that his lightsaber was at the Imperial's hip. "Stand, prisoner." The officer clearly didn't want to waste any breath in speaking to the Jedi hopeful, but there was something else that Luke could sense. This tone didn't come from hate or arrogance. This was discipline, something instilled by a strong yet feared leader. As the shuttle began its docking sequence, the chill he felt completely surrounded him. The hissing sound of the ramp activated, and he was escorted out of the ship by Imperial personnel. As he stepped down, he observed his surroundings, and saw that he was within a Star Destroyer. Yet he could spot building crews rushing back and forth. He was soon brought to a pair of Death Troopers and an agent. The agent stepped forward and spoke. "We'll take the prisoner from here. To your duties." The trooper that made up the former escort left as the officer handed the lightsaber off as well. Luke was nudged by a Death Trooper, an indication that he should keep walking. He was escorted to a holding cell, but it wasn't what he expected. Within the cell was a device intended for torture. The agent caught Luke eyeing the instrument of evil and simply smirked as he took leave. For it seemed like hours, he attempted to find some peace, yet it was to no avail. Each meditation would be preempted by a cold, dark energy. He soon heard footsteps outside the cell. As they came to a stop outside the door, he heard a singular set of footsteps begin marching down. The steps were heavy, as if a walker was coming down the hall. Soon, an ominous, mechanical breath accompanied it, and as the door opened, a large figure, one draped in black, entered. He couldn't see the eyes through the mask, but could still feel them piercing through him like a staff of pure Beskar.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Where is he?
Luke was speechless in the face of such a question. His mind searched for answers, and the best choice was one of denial. "I don't know a Kenobi." The figure before him paced in a circle before revealing that he was in possession of the Skywalker lightsaber. Seeing the weapon in the hands of another brought immense shock to Luke, so much so that his expressions betrayed him.
This weapon belonged to a Jedi Knight, one that I personally slain. Kenobi took it as if it belonged to him, yet somehow the weapon landed in your hands. No doubt because of Obi-Wan. There are many questions. If you are not able to answer my first, then you will answer this one. Why has he entrusted it to you, the adopted son of Organa?
Luke's emotions began to break many limits. He remembered that Obi-Wan said that the weapon belonged to his father, and if the words he spoke were true, the menacing entity before him killed his father. Though Luke chose to remain speechless.
You have chosen silence. An unwise decision.
The figure left the room. As he left, stormtroopers entered, with one order. They placed Luke in the torture apparatus, and he was to stay there until he gave in, or an order to stop was given. Lord Vader. The Imperial agent that escorted Luke to the cell approached the Sith Lord with troubling news. "We received word from the base of Navarro. It seems the Jedi you seek was there, with the rebellion."
Was he stopped? What became of him?
The agent knew that the answer Vader wanted wasn't going to be the one he received. "My lord, the report indicates that he escaped. The bounty hunter Bosk failed in his..." The agent felt the airways in his throat become compressed by an invisible hand. He collapsed to the ground. It was then he began to feel the relief of air again.
I care not for failure, Agent Hask. What was lost in the attack?
Vader knew that if Kenobi partook in a rebel attack, it was for a particular purpose, not just hit-and-run tactics against the Empire. The report indicates that data files concerning the Executor were accessed and copied. It seems as though they're coming here.
Kenobi wishes to face me then. Very well. Inform the hunters that the bounty has been rescinded, but send word to Boba Fett to meet me here at once.
Yes, my lord. Vader marched off, with the gears of his mind turning about the upcoming confrontation with Kenobi. On the moon of Yavin, Obi-Wan Kenobi and his team have just arrived back to the base with much needed data and information, all gathered around, hoping to learn of the next major move the rebellion would take. Yet Obi-Wan would have a sight that concerned him. He spotted a large YT freighter landed at the base, and pacing under it was Leia. He rushed over to speak to the young woman, concern growing within him. Leia, what in the blazes are you doing here? Where's Luke? Obi-Wan's eyes met Leia's, who had tears streaming down as she informed her master of her brother's fate. He was captured. The Empire was still on Ilum. He always rushes into things, and it was no different. I couldn't stop him. I just couldn't. Leia calmed herself down, realizing that she couldn't get too caught up in it. Obi-Wan already knew this. I have a good feeling where they're taking him. We just have to hope that we can get there before we're too late. Did you get what you were after? Leia nodded her head as she reached to show her kyber crystal. Obi-Wan had a sigh of relief as he had a new idea. I'm actually glad you're here for this. In my belongings, you'll find an older lightsaber. It belonged to my master many years ago. I want you to take it. Use it to construct your own. Leia felt a new jolt of confidence as she went off in search of the old lightsaber. Kenobi found his way to Mon Mothma, General Draven, and a smuggler accompanied by a Wookiee. The group were already in the midst of a discussion when Obi-Wan added his voice. This is certainly a strange combination. Who might you be? Obi-Wan certainly had an interest in the duo, and the smuggler was about to introduce himself until General Draven decided to take the honors. This is Captain Solo, and the Wookiee goes by the name of Chewbacca. Solo raised his hand, disappointed in his introduction. I can do better. Try adding captain of the fastest ship in the galaxy that brought your princess back to safety and is still waiting on my credits. We told you, Captain Solo. You can earn double your pay if you assist us with one more mission. You heard the Wookiee. That battle of yours is a death trap, and we don't want any part of it. Obi-Wan began to wonder why the rebellion wanted the skills of Solo. What exactly makes you certain he can be of use, General? I've heard of Solo's actions before. He assisted Impy's Nest on Savarine years ago. His piloting is quite remarkable from the stories I've heard as well. Well, if he's so skilled, he has my votes of confidence. Kenobi's suggestion was enough to get Solo and Chewbacca on board, though Solo was quite visibly reluctant to say yes. As the pair exited the room, Kenobi turned to Mon Mothma. You were quite silent on that ordeal, Senator. I find myself thinking about more pressing matters. We set the charge straight into the belly of the beast, so to speak. All to take out one man, in the end. Kenobi could feel the weight that Mon Mothma carried on her shoulders, mostly because the one man they were tasked to end was his duty. Trust me, I understand, though this will work, I promise you. Have the troops been briefed? As soon as we receive the data, General Kenobi. Obi-Wan was taken back at being called a general again, though he centered himself and informed the pair of leaders that the mission had taken on a new element. I also regret to inform you that this is now a rescue mission as well. Luke Organa was captured, and there's no question that he was brought there. The boarding team will be informed, and take this code, Senator. You'll need it. With that, all the pieces were in place for what was set to be another huge conflict during the war. Only this time, its center was a rematch 19 years in the making. Obi-Wan was going to confront Darth Vader for the first time since Mustafar, and he steeled himself for the encounter, just like every rebel that prepped for that battle, as did every Imperial under Vader's command, and even the Dark Lord himself. The rebel base sprang into action. The biggest battle since Scarif was set to take place. The fleet prepped itself for launch to take out the Executor Star Destroyer, and hopefully the man it belongs to, Darth Vader. The task of facing Darth Vader has fallen upon someone that knew the Sith Lord all too well. It was his former master, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Only adding to the pressure that Kenobi felt, he has learned that Luke was captured by the Empire and could very well be aboard the ship. Though he wasn't the only one that worried about the well-being of the adopted son of Organa. His sister Leia was far more concerned about getting her brother back. She approached Obi-Wan, who prepped in a landing shuttle alongside his team of rebels. "Master Kenobi, I must go with you. I need to find Luke." Leia was already dressed in battle gear, making it clear she had all intentions of being a part of this confrontation. "There's far too much risk in taking you. I'll be able to find Luke. But you have your mission. You are to confront Darth Vader. My mission is to continue my training. It can't happen alone, not without Luke. I need to be there. For my brother." Kenobi took time to ponder and agreed to allow Leia on board with his crew, but gave a cautionary warning to the young woman. "Keep in mind, we'll be on the Executor itself. It won't be forgiving." "I don't expect it to be." Leia took the time to familiarize herself with the crew as Obi-Wan looked over all the ships being prepped for launch. X-Wings headed into space, and he spied Han Solo and Chewbacca making final inspections on their ship. His eyes soon caught Mon Mothma, whose expression made clear that she wished the best in the upcoming battle. Kenobi boarded his shuttle and made way to a star cruiser that was being commanded by General Nadine. The communication soon lit up, with the fighter groups going over their assignments. The rebellion was en route to battle, though what they weren't expecting was the Empire to be at all prepared. It was just the opposite. Darth Vader had many preparations made. Reinforcements, elite troops, and much more were called in. The rebels were coming to his front door, and he was not going to allow them to roll through him. He did have one more element to his plan. He requested that Boba Fett be brought to his destroyer. The bounty hunter was present, only wondering what the Dark Lord had in mind for him.
Kenobi found his way to the rebellion, and they'll be here eventually. He will attempt to face me, but his new allies will be after the prisoner. Ensure that doesn't happen. You will be rewarded for your efforts.
Asset defense normally isn't my strong suit, but as you wish.
Boba went off in the direction of the prison cells as Vader watched on from the bridge at empty space. It wouldn't be that way for long before an alarm went off, along with the shouts of an Imperial officer. "Rebel ships at Mach 6-1! All hands to battle stations!" With that, TIE fighters were launched to stave off the first wave, and they were met with X-Wings as the first line of attack. Vader watched as the might of the Empire skirmished against the hope of the rebellion. While the battle raged in space, Obi-Wan and Leia, along with their boarding party, prepared for their launch. Obi-Wan could see that Leia was weighing many outcomes of this battle. He walked over to her in hopes of bringing her to a center. "Trust in the Force. Luke will be okay, and you will continue your trading. Just be prepared for anything." Leia looked up to her master, and she affirmed not only to him, but to herself, that she was prepared for battle.
Morning, James. You have a green light to launch. Captain Solo is going to guide you. Stick close to the Falcon.
It was that alert that saw the ships lock their bay doors, and troops crammed inside said what they could to instill hope and courage inside one another. As the ships launched, the roar of TIE fighters and the hissing sound of rebel fighters became amplified, along with the pounding of laser fire. They could hear explosions, some of which were their friends' last moments. Others were bringing them one step closer to the Executor.
Don't worry, you guys. Stay right behind the Falcon. I'll get you there.
Captain Solo and his co-pilot Chewbacca defended the landing party all the way up to the Executor. There were a plethora of hangars to choose from, and the landing shuttle carrying Kenobi and Leia landed in the one closest to what they believed were the prison cells. they unknowingly landed directly next to the Imperial shuttle that brought Luke to the same ship. Troopers shouted at each other as the doors opened and they charged out. Kenobi activated his saber and took lead. Leia was close behind, yet firing with a blaster rifle alongside the soldiers they boarded with. The first stage of their push within the halls of the Executor was one that required a large deal of perseverance, as it seemed stormtroopers were in endless numbers. Finally, Kenobi pushed forward, veering from his usual defensive strategy in order to break the line. "Behind the Jedi! Let's move!" One of the soldiers shouted as the rebels advanced out of the hangar and into the halls of the Star Destroyer. As Kenobi advanced, he began to sense a presence, one he hadn't felt since years ago. As the hallway came to an intersection, there was a moment of pause to quickly go over the next stage of the plans. "If we're lucky, that way will lead you to the cells and hopefully Luke." "Wait, aren't you coming with us as well?" Leia was showing some concern as it appeared she would take the lead from now on, but there was a greater part of her that took some pride in this. Kenobi made it clear that he had to go elsewhere to find Darth Vader. His search was not a peaceful one, as he continued to encounter Imperials along the way, but made quick work of them. Soon, however, the troops stopped coming. With that, he found himself in an uneasy void, one that was silent until he heard a rhythmic yet terrifying breathing. He turned to see Darth Vader standing before him.
You've turned the orphan children of the Organas into false hopes, destined for failure. Now you've come here, only to meet your end.
"I have a much different idea of how this ends, old friend."
I figured you would. A grave mistake.
Vader paced slowly, his hand still at his side while Kenobi stood ready with his saber.
Why have you vested so much interest in them? You even give the boy the lightsaber of Skywalker, a blade that rightfully belongs to me.
Obi-Wan debated revealing the truth to Vader in this moment, the truth that the children were the offspring of his old Padawan, yet he knew it was wrong. He still didn't even reveal such knowledge to the children themselves. "You needn't worry about their past, Vader. Their future should be of your concern. They'll destroy the Sith, I'm sure of it."
I seem to remember you believing that about another. How wrong you are, Master Kenobi.
Vader's crimson blade activated, and the pair rushed each other, their blades crashing with pure emotion and intent, an intent that was fully based on killing one another. While Kenobi and Vader clashed, Leia and the other rebels found their way to the prison cells. There, Leia could see a torture apparatus, and thankfully, it was empty. "Luke has to be in one of these cells, look around." Leia shouted orders, her first time commanding any soldiers. Not long after the order, she heard blaster fire, accompanied by the shouts of help. She turned the corner to see a squadron of stormtroopers and a bounty hunter. It was Boba Fett. He stood in front of the cell that held Luke captive. Leia knew the bounty hunter would cause trouble, and the stalemate that ensued was gnawing at her side. She reached down and found the lightsaber she constructed. She paused for a moment. As the battle raged on, she found a piece. She reached through the Force in search of strength and guidance she needed. Soon she rose and activated the saber. A shining blue blade emitted, and she slowly charged forward, as she saw Kenobi do earlier. She blocked fire one by one, deflecting back to the troopers. Boba Fett took note and saw it to confront Leia. He jetpacked down in front of her. She readied her blade.
"A rookie Jedi. This will be fun."
"I've had far more training than you think, bounty hunter." Boba fired a blast at the Jedi, but she was able to deflect each shot. Soon Fett found himself at an elevated position and opted to fire a rocket at Leia. Through great strength, she repulsed the rocket back at Boba, causing a section of the room to detonate, and Boba no longer there to be found. Leia then ran to her brother, cradling him in her arms. "Let's get out of here." Leia lifted her brother and escorted him back to the ship. As the battle raged outside in space, Han Solo took note of the plan of the rebellion. General Nadine, the plan is to blow this thing up, right?
That's right, Captain Solo. But we need to hear from the boarding team.
Listen, not to sound somber, but we can't wait on them. The longer this takes, the more time we lose. General Nadine, though he didn't want to, agreed with Solo's assessment. He gave the clear for the assault crews to focus fire on the Executor. Many of his systems were still exposed, making it a much easier target. Y-wing bombers swooped in, making each bombing run count. The effects of the attack were quickly realized within the ship. Leia, Luke, and the remaining rebels boarded their shuttle, but now the question was, where was Obi-Wan? The answer, he was still locked in battle with Darth Vader. He found himself keeping pace with speed, but Vader still possessed a strength like he had never seen. Soon the Dark Lord found an opening and caught Kenobi in his clutches.
I have waited a long time for this moment. You will pay for what you've done.
Everything that happened was your fault!
Liar! You ruined everything!
You have done that yourself! As the ship began to fall apart, Obi-Wan found a moment to escape when pieces of the ship nearly fell upon Vader, though this wasn't anywhere near enough to slow him down. The pair locked in battle again. So many people trusted you! You were a great brother, Anakin!
Silence! You have nothing more to say.
And you would have been a great father! Hearing that seemed to spark a great rage in Vader, and he brought Kenobi to his knees.
What do you speak of?
The children, the Padawans, they're his. Vader knew who Obi-Wan spoke of. It was Anakin. Yet, at this moment, he didn't seem to care. The betrayal he felt only solidified. He saw the ship coming apart around him and came to a decision.
Your betrayal will be our undoing.
Leia, Luke, and their crew waited for as long as they could, hoping to see Kenobi arrive and jump on the ship in time. But that was not becoming an outcome, and the Executor grew unstable. The shuttle took off, barely escaping the flames as the hangar came undone. Luke and Leia embraced, wondering what the fate of Kenobi was, as the Executor began its end. The Rebel fleet began its exit, with all ships heading into hyperspace. The Empire left picking up the pieces of what was going to turn out to be a critical loss. In the jungles of Yavin, the duo of Luke and Leia continued their training against one another, seeking to aid each other in the growth of the Force. Leia seemed to excel in saber combat, though Luke's skill was not to be underestimated. He sported a new lightsaber, one that illuminated green, this following the loss of his previous one on the Executor some time ago. He received the crystal from the saber of Kenobi's old master, the very one that Leia used pieces of to construct her own. At the finish of their training, Han Solo interrupted the pair. Hey, you two. We're leaving for Bespin any minute now. I have an old friend there that might make a pretty good ally. It'd be best if he sees the rebellion working with 2 Jedi. We're ready. Let's not waste any time. Leia and her brother boarded the Falcon, and for a moment, there was a new hope. Despite the loss of Obi-Wan, he spoke truth when he said the path for them was already set, and his sacrifice put a severe dent in the Empire. They were reeling without Vader, and now was the time for the rebellion to strike. The Falcon soon took off for Bespin with that idea in mind.